So I know you guys are tired of hearing this because I've said it probably a million times on the platform, but it keeps happening. So I have to talk about it again. So recently we were matching a lady that's 45 and she wanted to be matched with someone older than she was. And she wanted someone reasonably older. She said nothing less than 3 years. So, you know, someone that's like, actually she wanted someone that's like 50. She wanted like a 5-year difference, but she could go as low as 48. So she was like, you know, 48 upwards, good. So we went ahead with it and we were like, okay, cool, you know, took the genotype into consideration because she's AS. It's a little bit difficult when it's just the majority pool and all that. So we did all that, and after getting a couple of matches for her, we're really happy because we got a couple of really good matches, you know. But then she was like, she went through the list and she was like, no, I don't want any guy that's had kids. My jaw just dropped. I was like, oh, you know, first of all, that should have been mentioned first, you know, before going into it, because kids, those are things that are listed on the profile, you know. I mean, it's an anonymous profile, you know, there's a whole privacy thing, but it's still listed. So most of the guys on her list had kids, not just because they're over 50. I mean, that's a part of it, because most of the guys above 50 have either been married, widowed, some, you know, most of them are likely to, you know, they likely have kids. So the pool of guys above 50 that don't have kids are really few, you know. So most of the guys on her list had kids. Okay, these are the few people on your list that don't have kids. And she was like, okay, so she went with one of them, even though she felt like she wasn't really feeling him. But I guess the kid part was more important than the personality or any other part of that person, I guess. So a month later, she sent a message saying she doesn't think he's up for a commitment. She thinks he has phobia for commitment and all that. And I'm like, these are things you take into consideration. You know, you look at probability. What's the probability of a guy being 50, above 50 and not having kids, never being married and all that? It's low. It's really few. But out of those few guys, like, why didn't they do that? You actually have to ask yourself that. They might have commitment issues. They might just not want marriage in their life, you know. They might just want a partner but not marriage. So you have to take all these things into consideration. This is the same thing when the guy says he wants a lady below 50, and I'm like, okay, why? And then he's like, you know, probability that she might want to have more kids is not, you know, more kids or even kids is really low. That makes sense, you know, going by probability. So when you actually see, you know, when you actually make your choices based on that, it's a little easier and it helps, you know. So you can actually take certain things into consideration. So if marriage is what you want and you want to have kids with this particular person, the person might not want kids, and maybe that's why he is 50 and not had kids, or not have had kids, whatever that English is. So you have to take certain things into consideration. Some of those cases are really difficult because you try to explain to people, but people are so tied down with what they want, and you can't. I mean, obviously it's their choice. Everyone has to still go with their choice at the end of the day. But sometimes, of course, you know, what we do on the platform is introduce you to singles. So if you go out a lot and you meet a lot of older, like you want guys over 50 without kids, you might meet a lot of guys over 50, but a lot of them had kids. Like maybe you met only one and it didn't work out. So you're like, okay, there are very few, I can't find them. So let me come to this platform that could find them. Yes, we can, but you have to realize that that probability you had outside is really low. It's the same probability inside, you know. It's the same thing. There's a reason why majority of the guys above 50 have kids. There's a reason why, because majority of people get married above when you're older than 30, 40, 50, 60, you know, the pool gets smaller, you know, in that aspect. The thing is, if your criteria and what you're looking for is hard to find outside, it's probably hard to find inside too. And also ask yourself that question, like, why is this so hard to find? You know, so that you can realize, and also actually ask yourself if that's really important to you. You know, because sometimes you might think something is really important to you, and then you find out later on, like, it's not that important. It's happened to me personally. Certain things I felt were so important, I was like, oh no, then now I'm like, that wasn't that bad, you know. So I mean, just ask yourself, how important is this to you? A certain thing on your criteria, like, what's the level of priority? Like, is it really important?